Pentagon fails financial audit 5th year in a row. Right-wing extremists suspected in leaving over 40,000 without power in North Carolina. Assad regime opens fire on people protesting high cost of living in southern Syria. Iran suspends its morality police. Dutch wrestle with national apology for 250 years of slavery. From Washington, D.C., this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Hena Zuberi. Our top story tonight. The Pentagon has failed its annual financial audit for the 5th year in a row. Pentagon Comptroller Mike McCord said that's basically the same picture as last year. The Pentagon has failed every audit since 2018, the first audit of the department ever performed in its history. Anti-war advocates blasted U.S. lawmakers Thursday because Congress is expected to pass an $847 billion military budget for the coming fiscal year. The National Priorities Project, called a bipartisan proposal to increase military spending, is a sign of an agency that is too big, plain and simple. Earlier this year, Democratic Representatives Barbara Lee of California and Mark Pocan of Wisconsin unveiled the People Over Pentagon Act of 2022. It proposes cutting Pentagon spending for the next fiscal year by $100 billion. It also calls for allocating those funds towards threats that are not military in nature. That includes COVID-19 pandemic, climate crisis, and worsening inequality. On Saturday, former President Donald Trump called for discarding the U.S. Constitution to overturn his 2020 election loss. Trump repeated his claims of the election being a massive fraud on his Truth Social platform. He said it justifies the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution. Joe Biden defeated Trump by more than 7 million votes and 74 Electoral College votes. Pro-democracy advocates argue Trump's comments and GOP lawmakers' refusal to denounce it reflects its growing support for right-wing authoritarianism. A right-wing extremist implied multiple electrical substations were targeted to disrupt a drag show in Moore County, North Carolina. These electrical substations were damaged by gunfire in an apparent act of criminal vandalism. Local law enforcement agencies and the FBI are investigating. County officials declared a state of emergency on Sunday afternoon. More than 40,000 households remain without power amid freezing temperatures. Moore County Sheriff Ronnie Fields said utility companies discovered intentional vandalism. There have been no arrests. A private border wall built along the Rio Grande in South Texas could collapse during extreme flooding, according to a federal inspection report. The government kept the report secret for more than a year, according to a ProPublica and Texas Tribune investigation. The document was produced by global engineering firm Arcadius and confirms previous reporting from ProPublica and the Texas Tribune. It shows the federal government independently found structural problems with the border fencing. It reached a settlement with builder Fisher Industries in May. The agreement ended a nearly 3-year legal battle between the International Boundary and Water Commission and Fisher Industries. It must also keep a $3 million bond, a type of insurance, to cover any expenses in case the structure fails. Twitter CEO Elon Musk promoted a series of tweets Friday revealing the company's internal files. The documents appear to show the previous management buried or blocked Hunter Biden's abandoned laptop story during the 2020 U.S. presidential election. In a lengthy thread, independent journalist Matt Taibbi said that he received thousands of internal documents from Twitter sources. They point to the suppression of the Biden laptop story on Twitter. The company blocked people from tweeting and direct messaging about the story, he said. U.S. President Joe Biden was the country's vice president when his son, Hunter Biden, introduced him to Ukrainian businessmen. The story never gained traction in mainstream media. On Friday, an attacker tried to kill top Pakistani diplomat Obaidur Rahman Nazamani in Afghanistan's capital, Kabul. The attacker was unsuccessful in killing Nizamani, but shot and wounded his security guard outside the Pakistani embassy's compound instead. A Pakistani commando, Israr Muhammad, from Special Service Group, was seriously injured. He protected Nizamani with his body while firing back. Pakistan's Special Envoy for Afghanistan, Mohammad Sadiq, tweeted that ISIS or Daesh has claimed responsibility for the attack. The Taliban tweeted that the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan strongly condemns the attempted shooting. They also claim the gunman responsible was arrested. Assad regime opens fires on people protesting high cost of living. Details come after the break. Stay tuned and we'll be right back after these messages.
A free 3-minute online chat can give you the personalized tips you need to start boosting your retirement savings today.
I am what hunger looks like in America.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse, walk a mile in my shoes.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
We are Justice for All. Headquartered in the heart of downtown Chicago, Justice for All is a global humanitarian initiative dedicated to raising awareness for human rights concerns impacting vulnerable minority groups. Our diverse team of staff and volunteers, led by Imam Malik Mujahid, work tirelessly to help Justice for All achieve their goals. We promote policies that protect religious freedom, address the root causes of mass displacement, and recognize the plight of refugees and forced migrants. Together, we can continue to stand up for justice. Justice for all.
To stop this genocide, we need your help.
Welcome back. On Sunday, Bashar al-Assad forces opened fire on people protesting the high cost of living and security in southern Syria. Local sources said at least 4 civilians were injured in al-Suwaida province. The group demanded the overthrow of the Assad regime and tried to enter the governor's office while shouting slogans. Clashes broke out when regime forces tried to disperse protesters. When protesters attacked armored vehicles, the Assad regime forces opened fire on them. 4 Iranians accused of intelligence cooperation with Israel were executed Sunday. That was less than a week after Iran's highest court upheld their death sentences. The individuals were charged with destroying private and public property, kidnappings, and obtaining false confessions. 3 others accused in the case were given jail time between 5 and 10 years on charges of national security. The executions came amid widespread protests across Iran, triggered by the death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini. She died in the custody of the country's morality police. In related news, Iran's Attorney General Mohammad Jafar Montazeri said Saturday the morality force has been suspended. Iran's morality police has been embroiled in controversy since the death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini in September. Iranian officials, including President Ibrahim Raisi, have repeatedly dismissed calls for disbanding the police force. Montazeri's comments suggest the force has gone into hibernation after Amini's death in police custody. Activists decry and say that this is not possible, as the police force is largely a volunteer force. European Union Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell condemned the shooting of a young Palestinian man by an Israeli soldier in the occupied West Bank. Borrell called the killing of the 22-year-old Ammar Mafleh on Friday by an Israeli soldier the latest example of the recent uptick in violence. On Friday, Palestinian activists shared a video on social media of an Israeli soldier scuffling with Mafleh in Hawara town south of Nablus city. As Mafleh tried to escape, the Israeli soldier shot him point blank. This left Mafleh badly injured, and he was later pronounced dead. The EU condemned Israel's use of lethal force against Palestinians in the West Bank, citing 10 Palestinians were killed by Israeli forces in 72 hours. The Netherlands is expected to formally apologize for its role in 250 years of slavery. Yet the planned move is threatening to cause a split in the country. Some critics call apologizing for past injustices complete nonsense. Prime Minister Mark Rutte will deliver a public message on December 19th to do justice to the meaning and experience of past slavery. His message is anticipated to be an apology for the 250 years in which the Dutch exploited more than 600,000 people from Africa and Asia. That accounts for about 5% of the 12 million people enslaved by Europeans from the 17th to the 19th century. Groups including the Nationale Reparatie Commissie in Suriname, which was colonized by the Dutch, have protested against the Netherlands' gesture. 2 officials told Radio Free Asia all 40 people who died in last week's apartment block fire in Urumqi were Uyghurs. They died in the November 24th blaze in the regional capital of East Turkestan, which the Chinese government calls Xinjiang. There are reports that local lockdown measures impeded the rescue and escape of people trapped inside the apartments. This included delays in fire trucks reaching the scene. The blaze sparked protests across China over harsh COVID restrictions and lack of freedoms. Some have even called for the removal of President Xi Jinping. The protests are the most strident since the 1989 massacre of pro-democracy demonstrators in Tiananmen Square. Chinese media has not reported the identity of people who died in the fire. Coming up next after the break is our in-depth analysis segment, so stay tuned and we'll be right back after these messages.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accused. Walk a mile in my shoes.
Dad, they took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. Dad! You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Assalamu alaikum!
I love Adam's world because it makes me learn in a fun way. That Adam has a green face and orange hair. I like this song. I like how Adam sings. I like Adam's world because it makes me happy. What? No. 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 And here's Adam and here's Anissa. Adam is and his sister. Adam is a boy and he is really smart.
Download the new Adam's World app at adamsworldapp.com and let's help tomorrow's Muslims today.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes.
To stop this genocide, we need your help. In Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, the world has gathered to think, wonder, and decide what to do about the climate change. In the United States, 13 congresspersons, led by Representative Jamal Bowen and Ilhan Umar, are calling for loss and damage funding for the Global South. Their letter actually starts by saying that America is the #1 polluter. And they refer to historic flooding in Pakistan and also the 4th consecutive drought situation in the Horn in Africa to say these places did not contribute to the climate change and they need to be compensated. And that is one of the major topics of the Sharm el-Sheikh conference this year in 2022. We have a guest here joining us from Egypt who is participating there. And we talked to him last year, November 2021, about that conference as well. And it is Saffet Catavic. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Muslim Network TV.
Walaikum salam. Wonderful to be with you.
Where are you right now in Egypt?
I'm in Sharm el-Sheikh at the COP27 meeting pavilions. Specifically, I'm in the media center. That's why there's a lot of noise and action behind me. Apologize for the noise behind me, but maybe it's symbolic of a lot of the noise that's happening here during the negotiations between world leaders regarding the future of our planet.
So you were with us last year in November 2021. From that summit to this summit, what progress has been made?
It depends who you ask, but I think in general, if you're...
I'm asking you.
In general, the progress has been limited. To be honest with you, as you mentioned, Imam Malik Mujahid, that this was supposed to be a COP, conference of parties, for climate change negotiations that is supposed to hold up loss and damage. The first few days of the COP were spent trying to get loss and damage on the agenda of the meeting. It was not even on the agenda of the meeting as the original draft agenda came out at the beginning of the COP last week. So it's been a struggle to get it on the agenda. Once it's been on the agenda, loss and damage, which is only one of the issues that's being dealt with at the COP, mitigation, adaptation, gender, and agriculture are also other issues that are being dealt with at this COP. Did not yet receive any commitment to a financial facility by which the loss and damage will be addressed. Week one was really a disappointment, not because of the participation of civil society groups, which have been very active, participating in the COP, despite many limitations placed on granting of visas, especially for African NGOs to come to the COP. Ironically, this is the first African COP. But it has been a disappointment in that the entire week was spent discussing by the negotiating teams from the different countries as to how we will negotiate, how we will conduct the meetings, procedural, not substance. Loss and damage to this moment has not yet been decided upon in terms of neither amount, nor facility, nor mechanism in place to have it completed by. And guess what? Tomorrow is the end of the COP.
So you're saying it is ending tomorrow, but still there is no substantial discussion or there is no substantial commitment. Has discussion been there thoroughly?
Well, there's various issues that still remain outstanding. We just had a report this afternoon from the Secretariat of the UN that they're still working on the details of the agreement and the arrangement for loss and damage. There is the Global North in general. I'm not talking about all the countries in the Global North, but in general, that is pushing for it to be postponed until conversations in Bonn, which is sort of the interim COP in Germany 6 months from now. Of course, the African nations and the Global South are saying, no, we need it now in this meeting to be decided upon. There's also disagreements with regard not only to the amount of contributions, but to the way in which those contributions are to be distributed and are to be managed. So, for example, the Global North is aggressively pushing for loans. That is to cause greater debt amongst those nations least responsible, yet hit first and worst as a result of climate change because of the burning of fossil fuels in the north. This is what's happening. Secondly, that who is going to be in charge and overseeing this process, whether it's the UN or whether it's the individual Global North countries, which, of course, as you know, many of them, especially within the European context, were the former colonial powers of the nations which are suffering the worst from these disasters that are brought out by climate change.
Saffet, share with us, I mean, during this period, President Biden has been in Southeast Asia facing elections and all of that. What is his contribution to this extraordinary climate change summit?
President Biden did come, and his special envoy for climate change, John Kerry, is here. The focus of the U.S. delegation has been on getting nations of the world to sign on to a methane agreement, which was not part of the COP negotiations, though it is an important agreement. Other issues like, for example, the fossil fuel proliferation issue, the burning of fossil fuels, and many of the other areas that we mentioned, America has not taken an aggressive role in, even within loss and damage.
Imam Saffet Catavic, you have been long-time activist for climate change and the environment. Now that you are in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, listening to people talk, what are the new insights you're gaining about the climate impact, vulnerability, as well as adaptation?
Well, I mean, one of the key messages is that the Global North in general, and once again, there are some exceptions, is trying to obfuscate its responsibility for global warming and for the bringing on of the climate emergency. The Global South, sometimes referred to as the underdeveloped or developing nations are least responsible and are demanding their rights. They're situating this within the context of colonialism. And the stories at the level of the NGOs that are participating here and have been able to get accreditation is horrific. The live reports from the people on the ground as to what is happening in their lives. And they're demanding justice. They're demanding climate justice. They're demanding that a debt be paid, a debt that is owed to the South by the North because of climate change and the devastation it has wrought within their communities. And so that's their demand. And they're demanding money associated with that. And once again, just to give you an idea of how the game is played, instead of the countries who had already committed by 2022, that's this year, to put $100 billion in trust for the dealing with the issue of mitigation and adaptation for the global South, not only has that number not been reached yet in terms of being put in the account, when some of the northern countries are asked then, and the polluters, the major polluters are asked then to help to fund this loss and damage, which once again is still questionable whether we're going to get it or not. If some of them are thinking to do that, they just want to change the name or the designation of the money they've already contributed. So, and they've made some commitments here. 12 countries made commitments in the millions of dollars, but we're talking $100 billion, plus an additional $100 billion new and additional funding that is needed for loss and damage. No funds of that have been contributed, and there's an attempt to just sort of reassign the numbers. Also dealing with loss and damage, instead of paying it in terms of form of grants, there's an entire insurance scheme that's being set up by the global North or certain nations within the global North to try to cover this, instead of responsibility of paying directly to the countries what is owed to them for the damage and devastation that has literally destroyed the lives of tens of millions of people around the world. You mentioned Pakistan, there's Nigeria, and there's so many other nations of the world.
Well, thank you so much, Saffet, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Imam Mujahid. That's all from our Washington studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can find previous episodes and more on YouTube or Facebook. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Assalamu alaikum and good night.